And welcome back to the channel where we talk about only good comics. I'm Brant, and this is Friday First. This is the series where we talk about those brand new number one issues, character debuts, story arcs, and the like. And this is for books that are coming out next week, August 14th, 2024. So, I have already read a lot of books for this week, so I actually have a lot of books to talk about this week. I mean, there's so many books to talk about. I think I have like 13 on the main rankings. I've got like 7 recaps and 8 other anticipated. So we'll see how we can get through all this. But there is a lot to talk about. Before I do get into the books, though, just want to let you all know that last weekend was, or this past weekend, I should say, was the last con until October for me. So it was Bell County Comic Con, and we had a good show. We had a decent show. Unfortunately, Lisa came out of it with COVID, but I came out somehow unscathed, and have taken 2 COVID tests to date, and she has taken 3. So just trying to get better and all that stuff. But she's the only one positive in the house, unfortunately for her, and she's feeling kind of rough. But I think she's starting to turn the corner. But we had an odd placement in the show. We were on a back wall in a skinny aisle, but we had a lot of traffic all throughout the show. Had a pretty decent showing. Had you know probably my best comic sales day of the convention year, which was cool. A couple of people brought back a group of people, and 3 of them bought comics. 2 of them complete sets of one of our books. So it was pretty cool feeling to have some people enjoying the work, and hopefully they did enjoy the books and everything. But yeah, conventions are fun, and it was a good time. So I just wanted to share that. Next show for me personally is a show called Casa, which is I think it's Comics and Art in San Antonio or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it stands for, but it's CASA, and it's in San Antonio. It's a one-day show, October 5th, I believe. So that'll be the next one that I attend. And actually I met the organizer of the show at Superhero Comic Con earlier this year, Comic Arts SA. That's what it is, Comic Arts San Antonio.com. And it says read more comics. And I wore this all weekend at Superhero Comic Con, actually. So looking forward to doing that show in October. But until then, I'm at home and focusing on everything I've got going here. But that's enough about all that stuff. Just wanted to share like just a little personal update for you all. Now I'm back to work, and I've got actually had a really good discussion with someone. Speaking of work, and I know this is a sidetrack, and I will get into the books in just a second. I promise. I know it's a long show, but I had somewhat of an interview yesterday for a studio, and I'll get into that in the future. But it went very well. It was like over an hour conversation, and I'm excited to see what happens next with that stuff. So I'll keep you all updated. But for now, let's get into the recaps of some of the books that I talked about last week. So the first one I want to talk about is Blood Hunters issue number 1. And this is spinning out of the Blood Hunt miniseries, where we did see most of these characters kind of interacting in connecting stories, sometimes in the same story, and ultimately it was all of them teaming up to take on the vampires. And now, in the aftermath of Blood Hunt, vampires are still around, and they're not affected by the sunlight, so they can walk around in the sunlight. So you have Elsa Bloodstone here, who just wants to kill all the vampires. You have White Widow and Dagger, who are just trying to, kind of contain the situation. And Hallows Eve, who's trying to redeem herself and be a hero, has teamed up with them as well. And she's still getting the hang of her masks and everything. So she uses one that I haven't seen before, I don't think, in this issue again. So it's fun to see her continuing to grow as a character as well. Dagger can heal most vampires from the curse with her light power somehow. So it's an interesting group of characters. I feel like the characterization was actually stronger in the Blood Hunt miniseries than it was in this issue in particular, but I'm hoping that it finds its footing and kind of grows in that aspect of it going forward. We did see them interact with Miles here, and they find out that he's a vampire, leaves us with a cliffhanger. So I'm curious to see where it goes. It was a fun issue, but it did really feel like just a continuation of Blood Hunt. I had to remind myself, oh no, Blood Hunt's over, but we're still fighting vampires. But I like all the characters in this book, and that's why I'm going to keep reading it. Is it like top of my list? No, it wasn't that good. It was a decent read, but it's not quite there yet. But I think it has room to grow. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, because I really do love all of these characters, and if this is the place that I can read them, then that's where I'm going to read them. Next up, we have the Avengers number 17, which this was the start of a brand new arc, and it was also the introduction of Storm into the Avengers, and the way it comes about for her to become an Avenger, which she doesn't actually become an Avenger in this issue. I think that starts next issue, but it was both recruitment and organic, and I like the way that happened, because there's this connection between her and Sam kind of invites her to the Avengers, but at the same time, the way she actually joins the team becomes more organic. And I don't want to spoil that too much, but there is a threat that kind of draws everyone together to kind of take on this threat, which was kind of cool to see. It's a character from Marvel's past, and it has popped up various times as a hero and as a villain. This particular version of the character is very troubled, and it's exciting because I really like certain versions of this character when they show up, and so we have like these teases throughout this issue where we don't really see who it is, but I kind of got a feeling early on when we saw the silhouette of the person. I'm like, oh, is this? And then as you keep reading, you see different glimpses of them. I'm like, oh my god, it is. And then the full reveal, and it's like, all right, I'm down. I'm down for this. I thought it was pretty cool. Obviously, again, the aftermath of Blood Hunt, and we were dealing with like Thor was kind of reflecting on everything. Black Panther was relating to the Impossible City, with both of them kind of feeling invaded in different ways. And there was a lot of heart and a lot of just kind of team building in this. Carol is feeling like a failure. So there was a lot of elements and a lot of character stuff throughout this issue, and I thought it was all handled really well, all really strong. Art was gorgeous. Valerio Schiti comes aboard as the artist on this book as well. So really great start to this new chapter for the Avengers for me. Next up is Cowl 1964. Now, I never read the original series, which I believe came out like 10 years ago. But what I did notice right before I started recording this was the little tagline on the cover there says Massiverse. So now I'm curious, does this tie into Radiant Black and everything? Because if it does, and I've missed this somehow, I mean, it's very possible that I missed that connection somewhere along the lines. But if this is part of the Massiverse, I'm even more invested in this story now. So again, I didn't read the original, and when I started reading this, I was a little not bored, but it wasn't my vibe. And it's not that it's too wordy or too much information or anything like that. It wasn't the vibe that I was going for, and not the kind of vibe that I enjoy reading. But the more I got into it, the more I'm starting to feel this like classic, almost not quite noir, but just, I don't know, this period piece, 60s. It's just a different feeling. And when you watch like movies that are set in that period of time, it just feels a little different. It feels a little more rough around the edges. Things aren't figured out as well. There's a lot more complexities, but a lot of simplicities as well. So it's kind of this weird juxtaposition of a different culture and a different way of approaching things, but at the same time, um, because they don't have a lot of things figured out, it causes all these complicated. I don't know. I'm rambling and I'm not being able to convey what I'm trying to say. But anyway, I think that was captured well in this book, and it was interesting to learn more about this union of superheroes and kind of learn a little bit about the back history. We got this nice little preamble that kind of filled you in on what had happened previously. This takes place 2 years after the previous series, and we kind of learned that not all the heroes are that great, and there's been a falling out. It felt like you were watching uh, kind of a movie where you had this government organization that kind of fell apart, or like this small organization that kind of fell apart, and they're trying to piece it back together or go global, and you got people on the fringes, people that really don't have a choice, people that are trying to leverage their position for more power, and this and that. It just felt like that. It felt like I don't know, elements of like the Watchmen, elements of different things like that. So it was an interesting book, and because it's a Massiverse book, now I'm more interested in learning more about it, and also I thought some of the characters were intriguing to me, especially when you learn who there's a villain now called Skylancer, and he's a new version of the Skylancer character that I think had been killed previously. And once you find out the identity of that person, that kind of opens another complication in this whole mess of things going on. And I don't know, it's a fun concept once you get past like a bunch of uh, exposition and information that you have to get through to get to the good stuff, I guess. Next up is Power Fantasy from Image Comics. This is by is it Kieran Gillen? I think it's Kieran Gillen. Anyway, this was an interesting concept because it was there are 6 people on the planet that have like these nuclear powers. Now there are other people that are powered. I'm kind of guessing like they reference somebody that has like light fingers, and they reference the family, but there are only 6 of them that have this world changing power. So it's kind of like your Omega level mutants, and then like all the other ones that don't like have very weak mutations that can't really do much with them. You know what I mean? So, and even the storytelling, like when you start off, you meet this one character. I think his name was it Etienne, maybe, or it seems like it started with an E. He very much gives off that complex, more edgy version of Professor X, where the students start to realize that his motives aren't completely, clean and pure. But and then the counter to that is this other character that you find that you learn about later on, who's more of a hippie style Magneto. That he doesn't he wants to exhibit his power and influence over the mere mortals of the world and stuff like that. But it's an interesting power struggle and power balance to where these 6 characters kind of shape the events of the planet, and some of them protect things from happening, some of them cause things to happen, and there has to be compromises between them. Like, okay, I'm gonna, take out this person to stop you from taking out this entire city. Okay, so I'll kill all these people. They'll be the collateral, but I'm not gonna let you kill the entire, country or whatever. It's that kind of thing. So it is very political and very, in a way, religious, but at the same time, it's just so very philosophical. I mean, there's a lot of things played with here. I think it does get a little lost in trying to present that kind of, I don't know, intellectual struggle between the 6 of them. Uh, but it's still an interesting concept. It did take a little bit because it was very heady talk going into this, and trying to follow the thread here and figure out what exactly is going on. But once you got into it and you started learning about these characters and the delicate balance, it became a little bit more interesting. I'm not completely sold on the book yet, but it is interesting enough for me to pick up a second issue. Next up is Red Before Black from Boom Studios. Interesting book, and this one really pulled me in. I was unsure about this one. Now I love Stephanie Phillips' work a lot, and I was going to try it regardless. But there's just something about the cover that was a little, I don't know. There's something about it that I was just like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this or not. And then I open it up, and it's the same art, but it's colored a little differently, and it looked, better on the interior somehow. That just kind of pulled me in a little bit more. And the way you open up on this woman, the woman on the right there with the gun, you open up on her kind of like, narrating and talking about snakes and stepping on a snake, and then showing up in this bar and being mysterious, and she just got out of prison and she's looking for work, and then this little subplot unfolds later on as she kind of weaves her way into this other world with acquaintances that she knew from the past. And you get the sense that there's more going on here, and that there's deeper things going on here. At the core of it, it's a crime story, and it's kind of like she's out on, what's the word that I'm looking for? She's basically being utilized by authorities to get information. So she's kind of cut a deal and using her skills, but the authorities involved don't really care how messy things get and what lengths she goes to get them the information that they need. So it's very complex in that way. I thought it was written very well. The art was decent most of the time. There were a couple of panels here and there. There's just, I don't know. But overall, I enjoyed the book, and I was really pulled into the story and into the characters involved with it. So I'm definitely going to keep reading this book. Gotham City Sirens issue 1 was next. This was, I really didn't know what to expect with this one. Definitely not predictable, I'll say, which I guess is good. But as I'm reading this and I'm starting to understand the plot of this, I'm like, okay, this is basically a certain character who we already know is going to be in the book, so it's not a huge spoiler, but I still won't spoil it. A certain character, in a way, brings the concept of Westworld into Gotham, and the Gotham City Sirens end up interacting with this whole thing and decide they need to stop it because something weird's going on, and it's connected to people hunting other characters. Like White Rabbit gets abducted early on in the issue, and someone else almost gets abducted, and it's all tied into this Westworld like thing where these half organic, half robotic animals and people are walking around hunting each other. It was really odd. That's all I'm gonna say about it. Really beautiful art, really odd story, but not too over the top to where I'm like, this is just goofy. But I don't know. It still had me intrigued. And all the characters, obviously, I love the Gotham City Sirens. I love the other characters that were in this issue. I can't wait to see kind of where this story goes. But I think next issue will determine whether or not I'm going to continue reading this one. And then we have Uncanny X-Men, issue 1, the long-anticipated Gail Simone X-Men entry to this new era of X-Men, from the ashes, a new beginning. David Marquez on art, and this was everything that I hoped this X-Men book would be. So not only did this X-Men book feel like classic X-Men, it felt like classic Uncanny X-Men, specifically that book from like the 2 to 300 issue range. I mean, it felt very classic, but obviously you're referencing everything that went down with Krakoa. You're in a post utopian world because they had this utopia of Krakoa, and now it's fallen apart and everything's scattered and the X-Men are broken. And while the adjectiveless X-Men title kind of cherry picked different elements of different eras of X-Men and kind of mashed that together in a way that I thought was really well done. This book really paid homage to like those classic books, even from everything from the logo to the character designs to the characters chosen for the story to the credits pages. Everything screamed like 90s X-Men. It just gave that vibe. There's a lot of heart and soul in this book. You get narration from Rogue as we start to understand that she is going to be leading this team, and she's very reluctant to do so, which makes her the perfect person to be the leader of this team. And she's just struggling with everything that has happened and everything that is coming. And at the same time, you have this darkness looming that they keep getting predicted upon them that's coming. And then we start to meet other characters that are going to be involved in this darker storyline. Interesting stuff, really interesting stuff. And I expect no less from Gail Simone. Art was fantastic as well. Just a really beautiful issue, and I cannot wait to read more. All right, so that is it for the recaps. So let's get into the books that are coming out next week. We'll start out with our first honorable mention, DC versus Vampires World War V, issue number 1. This is for all the fans of the DC versus Vampires. I never got into it, so I haven't read any of it. I will say the cover looks amazing here. Really great art there. You got Damien, I believe, with as a vampire, which looks pretty cool. So yeah, it's you got Barbara Gordon's army has been dashed by Damian Wayne. He's the only one fighting back against the bloodthirsty hordes, and leaving Green Arrow with the choice: does he fight? Does he sacrifice the boy? Strong stuff if you've been a fan of this, and I have friends that are fans of the DC versus Vampire stuff, so I definitely wanted to shout that one out. The next honorable mention is for the Iron Fist 50th Anniversary Special, Issue 1, celebrating 50 years of Iron Fist, and this is an anthology-style book. You have a bunch of different stories. You have Chris Claremont and Lam Medina doing a Wolverine story. Alyssa Wong is doing an Iron Fist and Lin Lee story, and then you have Justina Ireland and Elena Casagrande's Casagrande doing a story on the Daughters of the Dragon and other stories as well. So if you are an Iron Fist fan, you definitely want to check this one out. I'm an Iron Fist fan. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this one, though, because anthology stories and all that stuff. But then again, we have a Daughters of the Dragon story, and I'm always down for that. So we'll see. But that's Iron Fist for you. And it's been a while since I've done a shout out, but I'm giving a shout out to this book from Boom Studios. It's also a book that I'm interested in. I'm going to pick up and give a shot, A, because it's Boom, and B, because of the reason of the shout out, which is because this book is done by Fellhound. Now, if you're not familiar with Fellhound is an amazing illustrator, storyteller, and I have worked with Fell adjacently. I've lettered a book that Fell has done covers for. Fell is in my community of creators, so I'm very familiar with Fellhound from Kickstarter and the indie community and stuff. So I'm really happy to see this book get picked up from Boom Studios. So I'm excited for this one. Definitely want to congratulate Fellhound, and can't wait to check out SIR. All right, getting into those ranked books now. The first one is Babs issue 1. This is from Ahoy Comics, and it is by Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows. And this is an interesting book because it is a sword and sorcery fantasy book about a barbarian named Babs who wears metal that chafes and itches and all this stuff, and robs dragons and stuff. So it's almost kind of like a comical take on Red Sonja by a writer who is known for gritty, dark comedy. So it's an interesting combination of things here. Babs has an enchanted sword named Barry. I mean, just this is kind of hilarious, and I'm curious about it. I'm not a huge Garth Ennis fan, but at the same time, when you put a concept like this, obviously, humor, the boys, is in Ennis's wheelhouse as well. I'm really curious to see what he does in the fantasy genre with Babs. So I'm giving this one a possibly good, just because I really have no idea what to expect with this one. Next up, we have Defenders of the Earth, issue 1. A while back, when I talked about Flash Gordon, I talked about Mad Cave's plans for the Flash Gordon property, and just that era of books. And this is part of that plan, that overall plan, because Defenders of the Earth is Flash Gordon, the Phantom, Mandrake the Magician, and Lothar uniting together to become the Defenders of the Earth. It's based on the classic animated series, and it's picking up from storylines from the original series as Flash Gordon confronts Ming in a battle, only to find greater threats, and that kind of brings these together. This is an 8-issue series, and it's kind of cool because, again, you're picking up these characters that are from classic, like, newspaper strips, classic series, classic cartoons, and live action movies and TV shows and stuff like that. So exciting stuff. You got Dan Didio is actually writing this. I did not know that until just now. That's interesting as well. I'm giving this one a potentially good. I did enjoy Flash Gordon. We'll see what Defenders of the Earth can bring to the table. Next, we have Ultraman X Avengers issue 1. This is an interesting concept. It's written by Kyle Higgins and Matt Groom, who know, like, these types of stories and characters very well. Both of them, have written their fair share of Japanese properties. Kyle Higgins obviously had that run on Power Rangers doing Radiant Black. Very in his wheelhouse is Ultraman. So it's going to be very interesting to see this, where Ultraman is teaming with the Avengers as Spider-Man has gone missing. And so you're going to have Ultraman, interacting with Sam Wilson and Iron Man and Spider-Man and all this stuff, and it's very intriguing to me. The cover kind of sells it in and of itself. Let's see, Francesco Manna is the artist on this, so I don't know. It sounds like a fun project. I'm not hugely familiar with Ultraman. I've seen Ultraman. I know basically what Ultraman is, but I've not consumed a lot of Ultraman content. But just because of the description here, you also got Kaiju in here. I'm giving this one a promisingly good because it just sounds fun, and Kyle Higgins at the helm, so I have faith in it, and I'm really excited to check this one out. Next up is Wolverine Annual number 1. This is the next chapter of the Infinity Watch Part 5. I am a little behind. I have not read the last 2 Infinity Watch, which was Thor and Miss Marvel, I believe. I'm a little behind on my reading. So I don't know where the story lies at this point, but I'm still on board with it. I'm going to see it through. And we also have, Sarah Pichelli and Nick Fury in this backup story. Nick Fury, Derek Landy and Sarah Pichelli with the Nick Fury backup story, I should say. So I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the writer on this one either. But yeah, I'm curious in the backup stories specifically. It says Nick Fury's like close to finding the Death Stone bearer, and we know that that's Phil Coulson, and I'm curious to see what happens when the two of them meet. But so I don't know how I feel about this. I think overall it's going to be okay. Um, so we'll see how it all wraps up, and hopefully I'll catch up in time to get the whole story before it comes to a close. But I'm gonna give this one a potentially good, just because I have enjoyed certain parts of the story. Next up is Spider Society issue 1. Every spider character you love and some you haven't met yet. This is by Alex Segura and Scott Godlewski. So, nice creative team involved with this. I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. It screams of Spider Verse. Obviously, it's definitely a lot of the characters from the last Spider Verse movie. I mean, we don't really know the plot here either. It is a mini series. I really don't know how to feel about this one, but because of the creative team, because I'm curious to see the new characters and so forth, I'm gonna give it a potentially good. I don't know if I'm going to be on board with it long term, but we'll see what happens with it. Speaking of Spider-Man, and one that I might be a little bit more interested in is Venom War Spider-Man issue 1. I have not yet read Venom War number 1, so I don't know what's going on in the story yet. But because this is actually Peter Parker back in the symbiote suit and not just black suit, from the cover it looks like he's got the Venom symbiote attached to him again. That's got me more curious, and I want to see what that entails, why he's back with it, how he fits into the story. So that's got me very intrigued. The creative team on this is Jackson Lanning and Colin Kelly, who have done stellar work on different characters. Winter Soldier, Captain America, etc. Greg Land's on art. I like Greg Land. I know he's a polarizing artist, but I've always been a fan since the CrossGen days. So I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic about this book, and I'm going to give it a promisingly good. So hopefully it won't let me down. Then we have Werewolf by Night, as Jack Russell is this version of the Werewolf Knight, and we've seen him pop up here and there. Now the blood hunt is over, but his life is turned upside down because things happen with him in there. The original Werewolf by Night is in for the fight of his life, and he's in it alone. So it says polybag for your protection, which means they're going. Oh, it's red band. They're going over the top with it. I'm not too familiar with Jason Liu's writing. I'm sure I've read something Jason has written before, but I don't remember what. And this isn't a character that I seek out, but I have liked recent appearances of the character. So I'm going to give this one a potentially good. And, hopefully it really kind of hopefully it's just a really good story and I enjoy the read. So that's all I can ask for. Next, we have a book I hadn't heard of until I was going through the list to make the list of books that I was going to talk about this week. This is from Dark Horse. This is Midst Address Unknown, and so this is interesting. It's an interesting play on the word unfold, because this land of Midst lies between two lands, one called Un and one called Fold, and this is the midst in between Unfold. That's just interesting and fun. I like wordplay sometimes, so I don't know much about this story. I'm not familiar with Colin Lorimer's writing or Alejandro Aragon's art. It does say third person and Critical Role, so I guess it's tied into Critical Role stuff, which would make sense why I wouldn't know anything about it, because I don't follow the Critical Role stuff. I think I picked up a couple of books here and there over the years. But yeah, if you're a big Critical Role fan, I just now read that. I hadn't read that before. I missed that paragraph, so I didn't know it was part of the Critical Role things. But yeah, if you're a Critical Role fan, you'll probably enjoy this. I don't know now because I have no knowledge of that world. But it says adventurous Ogden convinces reluctant Rowan to make a fresh start in the strange new islet that sits between the bright Un and the dark Fold. amidst holds dangers that will challenge Ogden and Rowan's family bonds as well as their will to survive. So I don't know. It could be fun. It could be interesting. I do like, fantasy and things like that. So we'll see what happens if I actually try it out. Now that I know it's Critical Role, I'm a little less intrigued by it. I hate to say that, but it's true. I'll give it a potentially good, and I'll leave it at that. Next up is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Nightwatcher issue number 1. This is spinning out of the pre-comic book day book, which I don't remember if I read that. But anyway, it's also connected to the recently released Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 1. We already know that Raphael is in prison and all that going on. This Night Watcher obviously looks like a turtle by that, so he's going to be one of the turtles. My bet is on Leo, but we don't know if it's any of the turtles, if it just looks like a turtle, if it's, we don't know. But it's interesting regardless. Who is this fearsome armored fighter staying bravely between the criminals who wish to harm mutants? It's going to be one of the turtles. I just don't know which one it is, but I'm curious to see who it is, and I'm intrigued. I'm down for this new version of the turtles, and I was sucked into issue 1 of the main series, and I'm definitely going to try this one out as well. And I'm going to give this one a promisingly good, just based on what I've read so far. And lastly, we have another X-book, part of the From the Ashes and New Beginning era of the X-Men, X Factor issue number 1. And this is written by Mark Russell with art by Bob Quinn. Now, Bob Quinn, art, fantastic, amazing. This is the Kill Your Darlings artist. This is an artist that I would love to be doing one of my books. I would just love that. I love Bob Quinn's art. So this book is gonna be gorgeous. Mark Russell is a writer who is a very good writer and always has something deep to say and deep to put in his stories, whether it's satirical, whether it's very serious, or whether it's just, over the top kind of comical. But his work is like, sometimes I love it and sometimes it's just totally not for me. But there have been some books that I've read from Mark Russell that have just blown me away. And I'm hoping that that's the case with X Factor. We have a lot of characters that I love here. Angel, Havoc, Frenzy, Pyro, Feral. I love all of these characters. They've got, the matching uniforms. They're doing the yellow and, the gold and blue thing. So that's cool. In this, it's kind of going back. It's a throwback to like classic X Factor, where the government is getting involved here. International governments are building their own mutant armies, but only America's X Factor has the most powerful, most patriotic, most marketable mutant heroes to stem the tide and make the world safe for democracy. So going back to the original X Factor, they were government funded and everything. And then when, Havoc took control of the team and everything, they were working with the government. They came in odds with the X-Men at times. And that's kind of what we're going back to now. And I kind of love that, especially with Havoc on the team. It feels classic. And I think that's what this whole slew of X books is going for. They're going for a classic feel with a new paint job, basically. And keeping it fresh with all the stuff that has happened, that has grown these X-Men, but kind of tapping into those core things that made each one of these books special. And this one feels like it's going to be more of that. So I'm down for this. I'm excited for it. I'm giving it a promisingly good. And this is probably going to be top of the pile. Can't wait to read this one for me next week. So I'm excited about this one. And hopefully this is one of the Mark Russell books that blows me away. I know the art will. So promisingly good. And that does it for all the first for next week. Now I'm going to share a few other books that I'm excited about, and then I'll let you get out of here and enjoy your weekend. So first we have Gotham City Sirens issue 2. Talked about it earlier in the show. I am anticipating it. I did enjoy it. We have Punchline right on the cover right there. That is the character I was referencing earlier. Just didn't want to spoil it, but yes, Punchline is already in the book and behind all this as indicated on this cover. So I'm really curious to see why. Is Punchline just a Westworld fan? Is that what's going on here? But yeah. Kill All Immortals issue 2 from Dark Horse is the next one I'm excited for. I really liked that first issue. I thought the cliffhanger was solid. I'm excited to see where this one goes as well. Interesting take on the Vikings of old being immortal and how that's going to play into what happened at the end of the last issue. Geiger issue 5. The whole series has been leading up to this point. I believe this is the end of this arc, and it's the ultimate battle between Geiger and the Electrician. So I'm curious to see how that battle plays out. I don't remember if I've read issue 4. I need to make sure I catch up before next week, because I think I may be one issue behind. So we'll see. But either way, I'm excited for this one. The Domain issue 2. You guys know I gushed about issue 1. I really enjoyed the concept. Now we have to see if these 3 characters can share this responsibility of this power, if there's any jealousy between the 3 of them, if they can work together to figure out a schedule, whatever the case may be. I'm excited for this one, and still spilling out of Public Domain. I haven't read this week's issue of Public Domain yet, but I'm curious to see if it references this at all and how they tie together. X-Men number 2. Talked about X-Men earlier in the show too. I enjoyed the first issue. I know it was a little polarizing for some, and I get it, but I'm still excited about it. In this issue, they are going to San Francisco to rescue a mutant that's in danger. And alien invaders seem to be doing the same thing. So they have these X-Men versus an invading alien fleet. And that sounds like classic X-Men shenanigans. So I'm down for that. And then Ultimates issue number 3, we get Ultimate She-Hulk. Debuts in this issue, I believe. So that's fun. That's cool. I'm curious to see what they do with She-Hulk. She's on the hunt for the ones that destroyed the Hulk, and apparently there's this hidden cadre of Hulks somewhere in the world, and she's going to find them with the help of the Ultimates, I suppose. So really interested in that. Transformers issue number 11. Optimus Prime is the last hope, but it seems like maybe there's some dissension in the ranks. Maybe not everybody's agreeing with them. Are they all going to stand with Optimus or not? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And finally, Green Lantern issue number 14, this tying into Absolute Power. Hal Jordan is doing everything within his power to escape Amanda Waller using all this weaponry and tech and everything. And in the meantime, there's a backup story that introduces us to the Shadow Lanterns. And I'm really curious how that's all going to play out as well. Green Lantern is a fantastic book. So, and that's it. That's all the books I'm going to talk about, which was a lot. And I appreciate you sticking with me throughout this show. I will let you know that there were a lot of flubs and a lot of edits in this episode. So if you see abrupt cuts or whatever, that's what happened. I'm starting to lose my voice. I've been talking a lot, and it's getting close to my bedtime, but as I'm recording this. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. I really had a good time with this one, and I'm really enjoying the show. I'm 5 episodes away from episode 50 of this show, by the way. This was episode 45. Believe it or not, that is true. It's crazy I've been doing it this long. So yeah, I'll have to do something special for episode 50. I'm open to suggestions. Let me know. But if you did like this episode, if you like any of the episodes, please give me a thumbs up, because it really does help. It makes me feel good. And, it's nice. Be nice. Give me a thumbs up. Anyway, and of course, if you want to see more episodes of this show and you don't want to miss any content up on this channel, consider hitting that subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss any of that content. Of course, you can follow me across social media at Only Good Comics. and type onlygoodcomics.com to take you right back to this YouTube channel where we talk about only good comics. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care, keep reading those comics, and I'll see you soon.